One of the things that drives us and motivates us is our belief that it is essential for social progress and to enhance the quality of life to have an active, informed, and involved local citizenry. And as I've been thinking about this, the public library put on a presentation on Tuesday evening called Considerations, and the question that got us talking was, what's one's fair share of as a citizen? And so doing the reading for that, I came across a couple quotes from the library's program that I want to share with you. Why it's important that we hold gatherings like this that we're having right now. They create local networks of community members. The more people who know what's going on and who are willing to work toward a goal, the more likely a community is to be successful in reaching its goals. They also create opportunities for discussing concerns. Regular ongoing discussions allow people to express concerns before problems become too big or get out of control. And finally, I think this is the most important one, gatherings like tonight increase the trust in community organizations and in government. Working together improves communication and understanding. Knowing what government, community, citizens, and leaders and organizations can and cannot do may reduce future conflict. I haven't heard anyone say lately that there isn't enough conflict in American society, so it's good that you're here, and we can begin to build bridges and understanding and relationships. One word to our speakers. Each of you will get 8 minutes to present. You have one slide to present, and Kathy Propp there with the 4-letter word that advises you when your time, and you have a prior sign to hold up. Is that correct, Kathy? 1 minute. Okay, so look for her, and she will tell you what to do. That's power.
Make the final decision.
Yes, that's power, just as I was saying. Also, Kathy has cards, and I hope you will take a card and write down questions that we can give to our panelists after they've made their presentations. I only ask that you write legibly. That's all. Illegible cards, I can't read, and we can't ask those questions. And if you want to target one of your comments or one of your questions to a specific panelist, that's fine. Some questions may be general, and they can handle both of them. Our first presenter this evening is Mark Roloff, the City Manager of Oshkosh.
Well, good evening, everybody. It's really great to have everybody here. A lot of familiar faces, but a lot of new faces this year. So if you're new, thank you for coming. We've been doing this with Citizens for Strong Oshkosh for over 10 years now, and it's a great opportunity. I hope that didn't cut into my time, Kathy, because I got to get rolling. As you can see from the slide, there's a variety of things I want to talk about tonight. First time we get into this, we usually talk about the budget. So just want to give you a quick overview of our 2019 budget. We have a 3% expenditure increase. Pretty much that's covering cost of living adjustments. When I say cost of living, I mean very broad. Inflation issues, fuel, although fuel's been great right now. We've had a huge increase in price of salt. Commodities and things like that, we always have to absorb those increases. The thing that's most important to point out with this is that while we have a 3% expenditure increase, we have a 4% levy increase. And that's because we continue to see reductions or freezing of aids from other levels of government. The state has something called a shared revenue program. They share, but not necessarily equally, and that's a big challenge. So when we have a 3% increase, you'd think that probably we'd have about a 3% property tax increase, but because our aid from the state has been frozen for as long as 20 years now, and in some cases there have been reductions, we have to make up that shortfall with other revenues. So it's typically our property taxes. So that's a challenge that I think we all face who levy property taxes, and that's our story with that. We're very fortunate to have the vision of our city council, our elected officials, and I know a couple of them are here tonight, and you can certainly ask them questions. The council engages in a day-long retreat every other year to develop a strategic plan. And we have our priority goals: infrastructure, public health and safety, quality of life, strong neighborhoods, and I'm missing a couple, but they're really important too. But there's, the council recognizes that in order for us to take care of all of the needs of our community, it's more encompassing than just, well, we got to fix streets and we got to do well on public safety. We have more to make ourselves an engaging and inviting community. And I think we're making great progress. You take a look at some of the things we've been able to accomplish. I would really point to our strategic plan for that. In a couple of examples with the rest of my slides. Capital and debt management plan. We have, every year we develop a 5-year capital improvement plan, and a lot of it involves how we manage our debt. We actually have a higher than average debt for communities of our size, which is a real challenge. And one of the things that council has directed me to do is to get our debt below, initially was below 70% of our maximum allowable capacity. And I'm happy to report that was supposed to be done by 2020, and we actually achieved it last year. So we're very encouraged by that fiscal restraint that we've shown. But meanwhile, we have a lot of other needs that are out there. We're taking a look at facility plans for City Hall, our Parks Department, facility needs that we have out in our industrial park. We're very excited to have what's called a transload facility. It may not sound exciting to you, but it really represents an opportunity for us to become a logistics hub for transportation of goods out of Oshkosh and actually out of all of northeast Wisconsin. And out in the Southwest Industrial Park, we've developed this transload facility, but we have a gravel road that gets there. And we need a little more than that. So having extra roads and getting there is going to be important, and we have to borrow for those things to help pay for those. So that's a challenge that we're having. And the idea with the plan for 2030, council wants us to set a goal. They haven't settled on that number yet. I want to be very ambitious. I want to get us to half, 50% of our debt management, and I think we can do that, but we have to be disciplined about doing that. But I think it's doable, and council's given me some preliminary indications that they would like us to accomplish that. So that's what we're planning to do this year, to develop that plan through 2030. Capital improvements, everybody loves to hear about them. Oregon Street, if you loved all the inconvenience you had on Oregon Street, it's coming back in 2019. This will be year 2 of a 5-year plan, and it's not just about the roads, and you've heard me talk about that before. Whenever we're doing these major street construction projects, we're focusing on not just the street, but also the utilities underneath. In this case, Oregon Street is all about getting a sanitary sewer that's sized well enough to serve the south side of town. It's very underserved right now. If you drive south in Oregon, you're going to see an apartment complex just as you're getting to the end of the city limits as they exist right now. And that's about all they can build. They would like to do more apartment complexes out there, but they frankly cannot do it because there's not a sufficient sewer capacity. That's just one example, but we have some industrial developments that would like to occur out there, or we just want to plan for those. So that's, Oregon Street's all about that. Hazel Street's all about it just being a very bumpy street. Kathy, am I right? Kathy on Hazel, so if you've driven over to Menominee Park, you know it's time to get Hazel Street done, and we're going to be doing that. So, and we're looking for ways that we can get a trail or sidewalk on the east side of Hazel Street, right along the park itself. So look for that improvement and the inconvenience. Bear with us. I know everybody on Washington Street is very happy about the results. Those are the type of results you're going to see with these projects, so we're happy about that. The term I have here, I probably should have moved it up in the slide a little earlier, but favorable economic conditions. That's the technical equivalent of crossing your fingers. This is all about funding some of these capital projects, and with our need to get ourselves within a certain borrowing limit by 2030, we have to show some fiscal restraint. But when we had our strategic planning process last summer, one of the questions we were asked was, what bad thing could happen that would really, challenge us? And I said, it's not something bad that would happen, it would be something good that would happen. And I know one of the questions is going to be, Kathy, when's Pioneer going to get done? I don't want to talk about Pioneer because every time I talk about it, I just end up being wrong about it. So nothing's going to happen with Pioneer this year. And then let's hope it goes the opposite happens. But if Pioneer happened, we need to get 9th Avenue punched in from all the way into the Pioneer Island. That circuitous route of going 9th to Main to 6th to Tracks and where am I now? It's got to be, you want to get to Pioneer Island, get off of 9th, straight in, you're right there. That's going to cost us several $1,000,000 to do a trail, as we've promised with the DNR long ago. Is going to require $7 to $10 million for that trail because of the seawall that's going to be required there. So my worst fear is that good things will happen. So we have to be ready for those opportunities. So that's one of the things that we have to address. And then lastly, as I'm trying to come up with my last slide, I would have to cheat. Oshkosh Avenue Corridor, we're so excited about what's going on with Oshkosh Corporation and the catalyst that it's become for the rest of the development along Oshkosh Avenue. The council's already approved some things, and you're going to see more things coming forward. There's rumors about a hotel. I can say that's probably an accurate rumor, but nothing's been submitted or approved by council yet. There's a general development plan, but not a specific one. So you'll have to bear with us with that a little bit. And then and I think you're going to see more of that happening. We've gotten a bank approved over there and a Casey's General Store, which is going to be probably the nicest Casey's General Store you're going to see, the nicest convenience store you're going to see around. The quality that the standards that council has set, I think, are going to spill over into the other areas. And then over in that area, what to do with the balance of the Lakeshore site. So we'll be having discussions, we'll be inviting you to meetings, and certainly want to encourage you to be involved in that. And Kathy's waving the stop sign. I can see you, Kathy. So I'm going to thank you, and if you have any questions, please don't hesitate to ask afterwards. Thank you.
Thank you, Mark. Our next presenter is Melissa Cohn. She's the Fox Valley Technical College Campus Director.
Thanks, Tom, and good evening. I always feel like I start with this enrollment piece, and I just refuse to talk about it. So let's just go on to the next bullet. Actually, things are the same. It's been the same for the last 3 to 4 years. Enrollments, there's a slight increase in certain programs and a slight decrease in others. Fortunately for us, the increase are for those programs that our labor market most wants: manufacturing, IT, health programs. I do want to call out our aviation program. This year, or I should say last year, a lot of work was put into expanding that program. It is going gangbusters. We doubled enrollments from 25 to 50. And by the way, this has nothing to do with the international demand or the $50,000 bonus signings. We increased the program to 50% to 50 students this year, and we anticipate another 50 to up to 100 students beginning next year. So that's really a very positive for the community. While we continue to market our programs, we do a lot of recruitment, we do a lot of awareness activities. We decided to increase our efforts this year and heighten our efforts to make sure that those students who do enroll with us finish. Completion is a very important key to this. We survey our students consistently, and the top 2 things that our students continually tell us, when we talk about what are the barriers to college, what's prohibiting you from starting, what's prohibiting you from staying in, it's always the same: time and money. So we wanted to so the college took a look at these efforts, and we created and they worked on 3 initiatives last year. And I want to talk briefly about those. The first one was a college-wide syllabus. Now, I know that sounds a little trite, but to get 400 staff, adjunct, part-time, full-time people to provide consensus or create consensus on a document is totally a big deal. It's a consistent document, and it benefits both the students and the faculty. The document provides a universal template that creates consistent terminology regarding grading policies, department and program grade expectations, student conduct, and a lot of other things, including course descriptions. students will know from the first class they enter to the last class they take what the expectations will be. It will remain consistent throughout their program. And again, with 200 programs, it's a little difficult to have everything uniform. So we know that this syllabus will be tweaked, but to have that consistency is great. The second initiative the college took on was the credit hour reduction process. I talked a little bit about this last year. We were experiencing what I call credit creep. And that is, traditionally we look at technical diploma being 30 credits, 2 semesters, 15 credit semesters. Associate degree, 2 years, 15 credits a semester. College, 4-year, 15 credits a semester, 8 semesters. Well, we know realistically that's not happening. So what we wanted to do is we wanted to take a look at our programming to ensure that we get back to that standard. We were looking at different programs, associate programs that had crept up to 66, 69. We had a program that's 72. So the leadership said, okay, folks, time and money is what this is all about. This is what the students are requesting from us. We need to bring those programs back down to what they originally intended to be. So we got them as close to the 60-30 credits as possible. And again, we are doing that we have over 200 programs, so we're working on that consistently. The last initiative completed this year was the alignment of certificates, technical diplomas, and associate degrees. We call them guided pathways. What we want to ensure, time and resources being the key, is that there's no duplication of classes, there's now unneeded classes, so that when students step out, because life happens, the average age of our students is 28. They step out, they get jobs, different things happen. So we want to ensure that when they do step out, or if they were to continue, there's natural stopping places. So the certificate, everything that's in the certificate goes to the technical diploma. Everything in the technical diploma is part of the associate degree. If the student only needs the certificate, fine. If they only have time to complete and money to complete, fine. They're going into the workplace with a credential that employers need. And we looked at all of these to make sure that for sure they included all of the work-ready competencies and the skills that employers were requesting. One last thing that we're working on, and this one's a little bit tougher, so we've been working on it for a couple years. What our adult student told us, especially again, 28, most of them working, most of them families, I only have one night a week, and you're offering these courses all over the place. So what we're trying to do is take, for instance, program, an example would be accounting. Tuesday night, it will be Tuesday night till you end the program. So we're trying to do that, provide that consistency and that pathway so that students can plan into the future. Now again, there's many things to mess that up, but we're working on it. Okay, and now just a couple other quick updates. I've talked about the Promise Program scholars. We're in year 2. The Promise Program is full scholarships to our district high school students that are eligible, full tuition, books, and fees. Last year we had 139 students. This year we had 172. And the big news is we had our first graduate walk the stage in December, a young woman from Watoma, associate degree in welding. So we were really happy with that one. It's a great program, and we hope to try to continue to get the word out. And here's some kind of fun things. This is happening up in Appleton, so this is kind of a bummer for me, but they opened a new, the Trilogy Salon and Spa. It's one of 4 new programs in the Human Services Department. The spacious lab, I haven't seen it yet, but I guess it's gorgeous, houses the new cosmetology and esthetician technical diploma programs. We do assessments in the community. It was a demand occupation, demand students, student demand. So of course, we're providing it. Various aspects of hairstyling, makeup, nails, etc. In addition, an associate degree in human services and a technical diploma for a career in human services assistant will all be offered in fall. This is a biggie. Results from the latest national licensing exam rank Fox Valley Technical College's nursing graduates #1 out of 4 and 2-year colleges throughout the nation. Passing the National Council licensure examination is required to practice in the medical field. During the most recent reporting period, 100% of FETC's associate degree nursing graduates passed the exam, 100%, equating to a rank of #1 out of nearly 1,900 college and universities that have registered nursing programs. Our LPN program, Licensed Practical Nurse graduates, passed at 100% as well. This achievement also tops the United States out of 883 LPN programs. And obviously, LPN is the pathway to RN. One more. Online courses went from 3% 2 years ago, 20% last year. Our collaborate real-time courses, these are technology, went from 3 courses a year ago to 33 offerings. This is all technology-based. To me, it's a very much an indication of what's happening in our economy. People are accessing technology to get their education. So, thank you. Sorry, Kathy.
Thank you, Melissa. Our next speaker is Dr. Vicki Cartwright. She's the superintendent of the Oshkosh Area School District, and this is your first time coming to Oshkosh Outlook. So you're nervous, excited? You decide, but yeah, come.
Well, good evening, everybody. I'm going to be providing you a brief update on 9 different areas, basically about what's going on in Oshkosh Area School District. And so I'm going to get started right away. And our first area is related to our strategic plan. It's very important for us because this is kind of one of those things that gives you the direction. In other words, where are the goals? Where are those things that you want to get accomplished and then during that span of that strategic plan? And so we're currently in the last phase of our current strategic plan. So we're now partnering with Oshkosh for Education to help us obtain information from the community. So the week of February the 11th, there's going to be quite a few different community forum meetings going on here locally in Oshkosh, and we'll be pushing out some information. So we want your input, please. And we're looking for all the variety of different stakeholder groups. So that includes parents, that includes community members, that includes business partners. We want to hear from you because we're going to be looking at, okay, where are those things that are working well for the district? Where are those things that we want to, we see as areas of opportunity? What are those areas that we see that we want to know businesses or even community, what are those things that you expect to have from maybe the high school graduate? What are those strategies and skills that they really need? And so we use that information. It's very important to us, and we're very appreciative for Oshkosh for Education for coordinating that information, for information gathering. But from there, what happens is that gets put into, as you might say, areas of, here are some trends that we're noticing within the information that we received. That is provided to our school board, and then our school board at that point in time decides what are the priority goals of the district for the future. And from there, it's on us as executive team and leaders at the district to go in there, flush that out, and come up with how are we going to get those things accomplished. So strategic plan for us is very important. In addition to the face-to-face, we're also looking at having online access for you, so that way if you're not able to make it face-to-face, you can still provide input to us by accessing a survey online, and that'll be available on our website. Let me talk a little bit about our enrollment, because a lot of times as you hear across the entire state of Wisconsin, you keep hearing about declining enrollment. Oh my goodness, what's going on with school districts? Where are the students going? And those kind of things. We're not experiencing that in Oshkosh. Our enrollment has actually been slightly up. It's the 3rd year of a moderate increase in our enrollment. From last year to this year, we are up about 38 students, thereabouts. And so this is something that is promising for us because it means that we're maintaining and we're slightly increasing our enrollment over a period of time now, while in many other areas across the state there's a declining trend. For private school vouchers, I encourage you to please continue to pay attention to this conversation that's occurring across the entire state. Please. Let me put it to you in numbers and cents, and I think this will make sense for you. From last school year, so from the 2017-18 school year to the 2018-19 school year, the current school year, we went up an additional 119 students who are receiving vouchers to private schools for a total of 234. Now, I want to put a little bit of math on that. 234, and we went up 119. So that's a significant increase. We almost doubled the amount of money that left the public school district to go to private schools, almost doubled. So specifically, from between the 2017-18 school year to the 2018-19 school year, there was an increase of $752,692. So it's a total of what the district is paying out is $1,639,314. So please pay attention as we have continued conversations on that. The concern, honestly, from a school district perspective on this, candidly, is we don't even know who those students are. So we don't even know if they're within Oshkosh Area School District zoning or not. So that's a point of concern for us as a school district. Moving on, with our school safety grants, we've applied for 2 different rounds, and we've qualified for 2 different rounds. In round 1, we have already implemented everything that we said that we were going to. It was due on December 31st, so we've already submitted all that information. Give you a quick highlight on that. It's looking at how do we do some window treatments in order to do shatterproof windows. We're looking at training for staff as well as tactical units in order for us for key personnel so that we can communicate across the entire district in a very rapid method. We also added over nearly 400 additional video cameras in order so we can see exactly what's going on in our schools. For the safety grant part 2, as you might say, is a continuation. It's mostly with training. So here what we're now doing is we're doing additional training for mental health as well as threat assessment. We're also going to be looking at additional security protocols in our schools. So it may be coming in the future to where, for example, you're coming to a school, maybe to visit, to volunteer, maybe check out a child, what have you, is that now when you check into the front desk, you may be required to show your driver's license. And then we can log it in that information and make sure that we know who's in our schools. Because our number 1 priority is to keep our children safe and, of course, the adults who work with our children safe as well. Technology partnerships. Well, the big news on this one is we have a lot of them, and we have a lot of positive ones that we're forging at this point in time. Through Amplify Oshkosh, that's a partnership with the Oshkosh Chamber of Commerce, as well as FETC, UW, and our area high-tech businesses to help attract, as well as educate and retain talent for our high-tech careers in the future. We're also with the Wisconsin Technology Initiative, and it's a partnership to integrate technology into curriculum, and it provides grants to enhance professional development, interactive whiteboards for schools. And of course, I know you've been hearing about the new IT Alliance that's going on right now, and we're also looking at the Advancing Artificial Intelligence for Wisconsin, which is very interesting because I don't know about you, but I've been watching that artificial intelligence stuff. Next area is going to be related to communications. Most important to note on this is please note that we have started really pushing out a lot of communication. If you go to our website after each board meeting, the very next day or within a day to 2 days maximum, you'll be able to get a brief 1 to 3 page highlight document that describes for you everything that has occurred during that board meeting of importance. And if you want more information, there are direct links right into the board packet itself. So that way you can go as deep as you want or as high level as you want. We're also making sure that we do a huge push as far as presence is concerned and pushing out the positive news, the good work that our children are doing on a daily basis and those who work with our children in order to help them be successful. Also, we developed and implemented a board-approved district-wide communication and marketing plan. Started this school year, and it's centered around 4 main content areas. That's our stakeholder or parent engagement, internal communication, employee engagement, crisis communication, because that's important too, as well as media and community relations. Lastly, well, not lastly yet, but lastly within communications is we're also looking for you to help us spread the good news of our district, because we know that as we work with our students and provide the positive things, there's a lot of negative things that people are hearing about already. So let's help and work together to get out that positive news and support our children in that way. Curricular updates, specifically with math, literacy, and STEM. So we have a few things going on. We have a K-12 social studies task force. It's currently looking at the new Wisconsin social studies standards and the college, career, and civic life framework. So they're currently under review right now, which means that next school year you can probably look for some new curriculum coming out related to social studies. We're also currently in implementation of our mystery science program. Is going very well. And we had three different pilot programs that are going on right now. Two of them being related to reading specifically. Is with our phonics and pilot continues in grades kindergarten through 1. And then the two programs being piloted are our Fontes and Pinellas Phonics and the Calkins Phonics. And then we will choose at the end of this year as to which one we'll bring forward to our school board for approval. And then we're also in the middle of a field study, and it continues in grades kindergarten through 12th grade. It's called the Sunday program, not Sunday, but Sunday. And on our Sunday program, that program is designed to deal with students who have potential fluency issues. It may be just reading, just basic reading skills. And it's really targeting students who have difficulties maybe in the realm of like dyslexia, where it impacts specifically maybe word, letter order, and those type of things. All graduates to be college, career, and community ready. Our juniors are participating in ACT prep and English and math content areas. And we're very excited about that. And we're also our integrated school to work in partnership with Oshkosh Corporation. We started that this past year. It's up and running. We'll have a continuation of that for next year. And then we're also, of course, looking for new students for the second round of that project. District report card, extremely ecstatic about our district report card, because with that, we overall category, we went up 1 this year. And so for many years, we've been at meets expectations. We're now at exceeds expectations. What's so nice about that is that it's been slow and steady growth, which is what you want, and that is what we have been doing. Little unknown fact, because we get compared oftentimes to so many districts around us. For example, we get compared to Neenah, Kimberly, Menasha, sometimes Fond du Lac. And things that people don't realize is that we're quite significantly larger than many of those districts. And we also have a significantly higher free and reduced lunch rate than many of those districts do as well. So for example, in Oshkosh, we have 9,951 students that counted towards that calculation at a free and reduced lunch rate at 41%, I'm rounding at this point, compared to Neenah, which had 6,699 students, but a free and reduced lunch rate of 25%, or 26 if I round. So we're doing very well. It is a moving target, please be aware of that. The state changes those rules every year. So we do have to take that into consideration. But given the population we're working with, we know that the longer the students stay with us, the more successful they're being. And we're very proud of that information, and we're very proud of the work that goes with that amongst all parties. That includes students, parents, everybody who supports our students in their growth every day. So thank you very much for your time.
Thank you, Vicki. And as I was looking at your faces, I'm seeing your faces, which is a good thing, but it also means you're not writing things down on the cards that you're supposed to be writing them on. So Kathy, you're bringing cards around for people. Good. Thank you. Because we only have 2 more speakers, and after that we go straight to questions. So I'm looking for these people in the front row to actually start writing. No? Don't make me filibuster. Yeah, you'll get a card in back, I promise. Yeah. Our next presenter is Alex Hummel. Alex is sitting in for Chancellor Andy Levitt. Alex is the Special Assistant to the Chancellor for Strategic Partnerships at the University of Wisconsin-Oshkosh.
Good evening, everyone, and Happy New Year to you all. Thanks for having me tonight. I'm sorry that the Chancellor couldn't be here. He's out of the state right now, so he asked me to come and fill in, and I work with him every day, so I know exactly what he's thinking. and can provide you on. We really want to thank Citizens for a Strong Oshkosh for having us here tonight. We're here every year, and it's always an honor and privilege to update you on the community. What's going on at your university? So I'm going to go fast because Citizens for a Strong Oshkosh is also Citizens for a Speedy Oshkosh, and we're going to get this done. First off, because we have a new provost this year, his name is Dr. John Coker. He's been a member of the faculty and community at UW Oshkosh since the early 90s. He's a mathematician, so I'm going to do this by the numbers. We're going to go through some key numbers, points, and explain to you why they're significant. First one, 16,165. That represents the new total headcount for students at your University of Wisconsin-Oshkosh. If that seems large to you, like a significant jump, it is. Just this last year, we have joined now with UW Fox Valley and UW Fond du Lac. Rather remarkable joining, one of the most compact of its kind in the state. So that's the new student total for our university. It puts us firmly in place, in third place, if you will, in the UW system. UW-Madison, UW Milwaukee, of course, are Research One institutions, very big Division I Research One institutions. So we're in third, but certainly not in spirit. In 2019, it's going to be a big year for us to continue working alongside our colleagues at UW Fox Valley and UW Fond du Lac to bring these institutions together. Just officially declaring it is one step, and then the work to build curricula, new strategic plans, student support services, and other common office functions. Those kinds of things are still kind of coming together. So I think what you'll see in 2019 is a lot more concentration on that as we come together as 3 campuses, 1 university. That's been our mantra all along. I want to thank County Executive Mark Harris, who's obviously next to speak tonight, for being such a gracious leader and partner, along with County Executive Alan Beekle and the county boards from both Fond du Lac, Outagamie, and Winnebago, also County Executive Tom Nelson. They've all been at the table working with us to make this come together. So moving along to the next numbers, 1688 and 11.1%. First, 1688, what's that about? Well, that is the number of new first-year freshmen our Oshkosh campus reported in fall. And why it's significant is because it represents, believe it or not, an 11.1% increase year over year. Now, you heard Melissa talk about the challenges we're all facing in terms of enrollment, but you also heard Dr. Cartwright talk about the change in the school district is actually seeing a little bit of an uptick. That uptick moves its way through the pipeline, and eventually it will continue its way into college around the state. We're all dealing with some demographic challenges in Wisconsin. There just aren't as many young people. So right now we're in the bit of a lull, but we project that in 2019, 2020, that lull will really start to swing upward, and we see a rebound in enrollment for the overall university. So we're looking forward to that. We're working hard on our enrollment planning. We're working hard on reaching out to the students that we know can be coming our way and making the case that UW Oshkosh is the right place for them, whether it's Fond du Lac, Fox, or the Oshkosh campus. So there's some exciting things on the horizon in that regard. Next number, 85%. This is something I think maybe a lot of people don't realize, but 85% is the most recent reported percentage of UW Oshkosh campus graduates. These are the folks that we could track the most recently from the graduating class of 16-17, who reported remaining in Wisconsin after graduation. 85% of UW Oshkosh graduates stick. So we hear a lot about brain drain. What's happening? Why do we hear so much about it? It's a little different for the 4-year comprehensive public institutions. We educate a lot of the students that are around us, and a lot of them stay. So we feel really proud about that number. 88% of the native Wisconsin students at UW Oshkosh stay. About 23 to 25% of the out-of-state students who come to the University of Wisconsin-Oshkosh stay. So we're retaining them. Not good enough, though. We're going to challenge ourselves to do even better to make sure that they stick when they graduate. We need their talent. You all know that. Probably the employers and the organizations that you're part of know that. So we're going to challenge ourselves in 2019 to make that even bigger success story. And that means more nonprofit work opportunities. It means more internships. It means other connectivity with employers and organizations in the region. Let's see, moving on. This is actually a two-parter by the numbers again. First, 8.9%. I want to talk about that number. That was the percent of undergraduate students of color at UW Oshkosh in 2010. 15.7% is the percentage of undergraduate students of color at UW-Oshkosh as of fall of 2018. A remarkable change, and we believe it's an important change. It's remarkable growth in less than a decade, and we're working really hard to make sure that our students are not just places where we can draw more students of color, but that they have more success and stay and we retain them. So this is key, we think, to improving the inclusivity of our campus and also the populations of our city and our region. So we're going to continue to push ourselves on that, making sure that not only students have great experiences, but when they come to college, they also see faculty, professors, and staff that reflect the student body. So we're also concentrating more on hiring faculty members of color. It's a very important direction for us in 2019, and we're going to really concentrate on it. It's vital to our campus and to our regions, so you'll hear more about that. Next number, and here's where we get into some difficult budget matters for UW-Oshkosh. $9.5 million. That represents a gap. That is a gap in the total revenue to expenditures, so it's a budget gap, that we've faced as we moved into fiscal year 2018. Okay, so it's a little bit behind us now. And it's been driven by that demographic challenge that I mentioned before. It's been driven by funding challenges on the state level. It's driven by a few very important things. So we experienced a reduction of more than 1,800 undergraduate students from 2010. That's more than 1,800 students from 2010 to this past fall. That's dramatic. So how do we manage our budget when we've got that many fewer students coming to UW-Oshkosh? The $9.5 million represents the gap, and I'm here to say that the 4.6 is where we still have to go. And we know that there's going to be a big budget year ahead of us, so we're going to be advocating strongly on behalf of the investment in the UW system in UW-Oshkosh. Obviously, it's important. And realizing all these factors, we last year submitted a plan for fiscal transformation at the university, and we're going to be moving further into it this year, looking at another $3.8 million in fiscal year 20, a $3.8 million reduction, and about projected $800,000 in fiscal 21. Meanwhile, we're also looking at revenue generation, which is why we're working so hard on getting more students to come to UW-Oshkosh. The lifeblood of a university, as the chancellor likes to point out, is its enrollment. So we're really pushing ourselves to make sure when that swing happens, when that uptick happens in student numbers in Wisconsin, that we can harness the talent. Let's see. Last but not least, I think I'm right on time. 4.35, which is a really silly number, but this happens to be the acreage of the new campus recplex, which includes that giant marshmallow that you see over on Wisconsin Street and Pearl Avenue. That is the recplex dome. It's part of a two-field complex that students invested in as a form of student recreation and wellness. So it's a new feature. The dome will be up, which obviously is the most eye-catching thing, from November to May. And it's got soccer, football, lacrosse, softball capabilities inside, on all the fields actually, indoor frisbee, all those kinds of recreational options for students, and the first of its kind in the UW system. So it's been a great asset already. People are very curious, obviously, because of the way it hits the skyline. And it does have a business plan. So we're working with local soccer clubs and youth sports camps to host them there too. So the community will have access when it's not in use by students or when there's a little bit of downtime. So that is my stop sign, and I'm going to wrap it up there and wait for your questions. So thank you.
Thank you, Alex. And Mark Harris, our Winnebago County executive, is our last speaker. And the way that the sequence of speakers is determined is alphabetical by the agency that they represent, I think. But it's worked out, Mark, you have always been the last one because Winnebago County is at the very end of the alphabet. So it's no reflection on you or Winnebago County, it's just the alphabet. Blame the alphabet. Yeah, okay.
I'm going to talk about 3 new things that affect the county. They're not necessarily fun things, but they're things that we do have to deal with. And I think some people will be surprised at the variety of issues that face the county over time. Well, the first one is Chapter 980, Civil Commitments. This is a chapter that deals with individuals that were found to be violent sexual offenders. And when they get done with their prison terms, they are not necessarily released into the public. They oftentimes are moved to an institution called Sandridge, where they're held in civil commitment if they're deemed to be a danger to themselves or others. And consequently, many of these individuals spend more years in civil commitment than in prison. And for years, the State Department of Health Services was responsible for placing these individuals when it was deemed that they were less likely to offend than to reoffend. And they had to be placed somewhere. Well, there was a new law, Act 184, that the state passed that had good intentions. The act was inspired because some large urbanized counties were placing their sexual offenders in more rural surrounding counties. And the public rightly thought that was very unfair. So they passed a law that requires counties to place their own offenders within their own boundaries. I agree with it completely in that regard. I don't think offenders from one community should go to another. I wouldn't want someone from a different county than mine to come into my county. But along with Act 184, they made some changes to some spacing that was laid out in the statutes. For instance, a dangerous sexual offender can't be placed within 1,500 feet of a school or a daycare, of a park, or of a home with a minor child, although that one, the rules are a little bit tricky and too detailed to go into here. And once they passed that 1,500-foot area, what the state soon discovered was that eliminated so much of the communities where these individuals were supposed to be placed that very little area is left, especially an urbanized area. So the state decided that they would transfer responsibility for identifying a location and a landlord that was willing to rent for this purpose to county corporate councils and human service directors, because the state had so much difficulty finding these locations on their own. They also built into the law some pretty steep fines. The county can be fined $1,100 a day after a designated period, and the period's actually getting shorter, but I think it's something like 180 days. That the county has to come up with an address that can be used. If you don't meet that standard, there's a determination in court as to whether you should be subject to fine, and they can fine you $1,100 a day. Let me repeat that, $1,100 per day until you find a location. And one of the shocking things about the statute is the first $1,000 per day goes to the offender. Now, realistically, the offender's not going to get to keep that money. They're going to owe the state a great deal of money for their incarceration. But that is how the statute's written. And there's now 7 individuals in Sandridge that originate in Winnebago County. There's one we're dealing with currently, and the committee that I'm not on reached what I thought was a brilliant decision. They couldn't find any landlord willing to rent, and they had some preference for placing the individual in the community that they came from. Because again, even within a county, one community doesn't want an offender from another community. So they came up with the idea that there's some isolated areas that aren't near schools, daycares, any of the prohibited areas that the county owns, and that the county, in fact, could become the landlord, and that we could make a place for a mobile home or some form of housing that would be isolated in that way. And that actually was very well received from the community. Because in truth, none of us want to place these people anywhere, but they have served their time, they've served the civil commitment, they're going to come out and they have to be somewhere. So that's one of the things we're dealing with. It's complicated. Currently, the county's recommendation is to place them between the jail's property and the highway department's property and across from the landfill, and that's how we could get the required spacing. I would like to see some changes in this law. In fact, I would like the responsibility shifted back to the state. But I don't know if that'll happen or not. The next item also deals with a correctional issue, and that's juvenile corrections. The state has a large juvenile correction facility, actually two. They have Lincoln Hills for boys and Copper Lake for girls. And the counties are actually paying the cost of that because we're billed per day per juvenile that's in placement there. And the current fee is about $500 a day per juvenile. So it's no small amount of money. But several years ago, my human service director concluded that the results from Lincoln Hills were not good. That the kids were coming back more hardened than they left, and they didn't fit in well with their families when they wanted to come back. So we invested additional money in the social service area to give families support, to intervene sooner, and to try and keep the juveniles at home. So we currently do not have a single placement in Lincoln Hills or Copper Lake. And I'm actually very proud of the fact that we don't have any kids placed there. But the state recently announced that they were going to shut down those two facilities as of 2021, and that the counties should take over the regular juvenile placements. And the reason I say that is because they're classified into two categories: serious juvenile offenders that have committed very serious crimes. The state will retain responsibility for those individuals, but they are planning on establishing some new facilities around the state. But the regular juvenile offenders, those will become the responsibility of the counties. Like I say, we currently don't have any. So what we're looking at is working with a coalition of counties, maybe 12 counties in this northeast section, and we'll try and get down to one 24-bed facility. We think Fond du Lac County may, in fact, be the county willing to do that. My last item is a strange one, Kimberly-Clark. I am elated that the jobs at Kimberly-Clark were saved by a deal with the state. But it's a little complicated because there's a new trend. And when Kimberly-Clark was before the Senate committee talking about the possibility of them receiving incentives to keep the plant open, they mentioned Mercury Marine several times. They wanted a deal like Mercury Marine. Well, Mercury Marine was not just a state deal. It was also supported by Fond du Lac County. Fond du Lac County put $50 million into that deal and adopted the sales tax to do so. So Winnebago County, we were quietly thinking about what we would do if Kimberly-Clark could not reach a satisfactory deal with the state. And would the county consider anything like what Fond du Lac County did? And when it was discussed with the Finance Committee, there was really no interest in doing so. But it was something where we're behind the scenes preparing for the possible outcomes, was very pleased that the state invested heavily in saving those jobs, although I have to say I have some concerns at the implications. If you pay a corporation that does not pay state taxes, and most of these corporations that got these incentives are manufacturers that pay little or no state income tax. If you pay them for keeping some of their jobs here, what manufacturer wouldn't want those significant incentives for staying or keeping some of their jobs here? So there's difficult implications for the future. And I'm going to wind it up on just what I think is an interesting note. Sometimes the media gives you more attention than you want, and sometimes less than you deserve, but that can be good too. An example of more attention than I deserve is that there was a candidate for Congress in North Carolina who happens to have my same name, Mark Harris. And I got more attention than I wanted because both CNN and Fox News use my picture in the stories. So in one, it was Mark Harris wins congressional seat, and there I was. And another one was massive voter fraud, and there I was. So that's an example of too much. It wasn't too hard on me because I told everybody that some intern was just told to look for a picture of Mark Harris in Congress, to Google that. And I think they just picked the best-looking picture that they could find. So thank you.
Thank you, Mark, and for that anecdote, you're not going to be asked the first question. Actually, a number of these questions have very similar topics, so I'm grouping this first one, and this is one that each of you is invited to reply to. Some of them are specific, but this first set is for all of you. Let me see. One of them reads, what concrete plans do the city, county, and school district have to create a more inclusive environment for increasingly diverse community? Another one talks about the changing demographics of an aging population and a labor shortage, and the impact that those changes have on public policy. And finally, what are some broad initiatives across the community to increase and make sure residents of color feel welcome, and what are we doing as a community to make sure we are represented in the various councils, school boards, et cetera, and have a voice in decisions made that affect our community. So diversity and inclusion. Vicki, you've got this look on your face like you want to go first. Okay, sure. No, we're going to ask this one.
So on this one, I'm actually very, very happy to announce something that we're doing right now. And this is actually something that is in partnership with many of these individuals at the table up here. So looking at our recruiting strategies, because we're always looking for wonderful teachers and wonderful support personnel to come and work with our children. And so in doing that, we just kept talking to ourselves. We're like, we always go out and we always, recruit, and we go to different job fairs and those kind of things. And so that's wonderful. We may locate one person, but most of the time when you're hiring, what are you hiring for? You usually are hiring that person and their significant other, correct? And so we were trying to figure this out. We're like, all right, so if we're really trying to diversify our workforce and we're really trying to do that, how do we ensure that we're taking care of the unit rather than just one person? And so I'm happy to say that we forged some partnerships. So we have forged a relationship with the City of Oshkosh as well as with the University of Wisconsin-Oshkosh. In order so that when we are going out on our recruiting fairs right now, they're coming along with us. And recruiting also for potential businesses as well as a variety of different opportunities throughout Oshkosh. So that's one technique I just want to answer to is one question of what are you doing in order to diversify your workforce a little bit. That is one strategy that we are doing right now, in addition to where are we going. And so we're being very specific and strategic as to where we're going as well in order to recruit for individuals to come into Oshkosh Area School District as well as Oshkosh as a whole.
Other panelists? Yeah, okay. And why don't you just come up rather than waiting me?
My turn?
Yeah, look at that blank look on your face and then call on you.
There were multiple people, and I thank Dr. Cartwright for talking about the partnerships that we have. And I think any of these questions, you're going to see that. I was waiting for Mark Harris because last year, Mark ended on a really good story, so I can't discount that. But the story he talked about last year that I think needs to be talked about is we work together a lot. And I would say that what we do in Oshkosh in terms of collaboration is outstanding and second to none. And I know that's, well, you don't get the results. It's like you start with the conversations, and Dr. Cartwright has come into the fold. She's the newbie here, the rookie, but she has immediately gotten engaged and sent out the invite. Would you like to bring some of your HR people to go on these recruiting trips? It makes absolute perfect sense, especially with our job market. We need to attract more people. Alex talked about how the university is trying to attract students. It's not just about attracting the students, it's about retaining the students. If you look at all the employers that are looking for good people, we cannot afford to ignore 40% of our population, of our nation's population. We need to attract them, and they need to feel welcome and invited, and so that not only they come, but they also want to stay. And it's not an issue of, well, you have a job. it's more qualitative, and that's something that we all need to work on. Well, thank you. You know, please, we have a lot of work to do, and we're working together. We're going to be looking at some other communities, some of their best practices. Maybe some of that stuff can rub off on us. We have a lot of work to do, but it's sometimes you have to make it about economics, and people can understand that. There's a moral issue here, but there's also an economic issue. And if we got to use economics to sell it, let's sell it with economics. There will be a moral good that comes out of it, but we really need to work on that. And it's an economic imperative for us to do more of that. So we're going to be looking at some best practices and coming back. I'm very pleased that the council, city council sat down with me to go over my goals. And one of the goals that they've discussed is we need to work on diversity and inclusion. And we've got some great partners that we can work with. We have a lot of work to do, but part of it is, you know, from one standpoint, an event, Unity and Community, began last year to invite and show the diversity of our community that people may not necessarily be aware of. And that's important. But then we have to go beyond that, and the council is certainly given me the green light to do more in involvement. And I think the invitation that Dr. Cartwright extended, we've hired a new person for recruitment of employees and retention of employees. We can put a lot into recruiting, but if we don't keep them, we've just failed. So we're going to be working a lot on that, and our HR generalist that we've hired is going to be working very closely with the school district, and we all need that. And these days, trailing spouses are a huge part of that, and they need to know that they're welcome as well. So we need to not just sell it to that person who we may be directly recruiting, but everybody else we're indirectly recruiting. So we have a long road to go on this, and I don't mind being held accountable for it because it's going to be an ongoing effort. This isn't something that it's a goal for 2019 and then we can pat ourselves on the back. We have a long road to go, and we're going to need assistance from the community to encourage us and help us, give us the support that we need, because this can be expensive sometimes, but it involves a commitment that we all need to work on. So long story, but I think Vicki filled in the details about what we're trying to do to get this stuff happen. So keep us accountable. That's okay. We want to do that. So thanks for the opportunity to talk about this.
Just wanted to point out, a lot of people might not realize, but Oshkosh is actually one of the bigger cities in terms of refugee resettlement. And of course, that involves services from all the layers of government in the school district to coordinate things to help integrate refugees when they come to the community. And Vicki, how many languages now are there in the district? It's a lot of languages that are up to 50 languages. Yeah. So we actually are viewed as doing a good job of integrating refugees over time, and obviously the Hmong community being the biggest example of that. So.
Alex, do you want to address this?
I think you're okay. Yeah.
There are some specific questions for some of our panelists, so I think this is a quick one. It's for you, Alex. How many fields at one time in Recplex? Yeah, number. You.
That is a wonderful question. I would like to acknowledge how great that question is. You know, what I can tell you, I'm sorry I don't have a more specific answer. I can tell you that the Recplex is designed in a way so that there's a large, very large soccer field. I don't know if it would qualify as like a professional Olympic-sized soccer field. But then if you turn the other way, perpendicular to it, you can divide up the under the bubble the fields into three, I think, 2 or 3. So there's ways to kind of divvy it up. And then the open field across Osceola Street has also got a lot of open space too, and it works in the same way. So you can have multiple games or contests or practices going on at one time. So hope that answers your question. Anybody else want to take a whack at that one?
I thought you'd just say 7 and we'd move on, but, okay. Melissa, this one's for you. Can students with associate degrees in human services be able to transition to UWO's program easily?
Since it's a new program, I'm sure that hasn't been articulated yet. We have multiple programs that, associate degree programs that transfer right into UWO. Our main transfer colleges are UWO, Green Bay, and Lakeland. I just saw Dr. May had a presentation on Tuesday, and I wanted to say the biggest transfer, I want to say it's about 250 students from Fox Valley Tech transferred to UWO. Then the next was Green Bay, and then Lakeland, and I think Lakeland was double digit. So we do have a lot of transfers with those colleges. The reverse is similar. We have a lot of students that transfer to us from UWO, UWGB, and Lakeland. So, I mean, we do have many, many students that continue their education. Hope that answers it.
Mark Roloff, two related questions. With all the growth to the city structurally, are we being mindful to consider green spaces? And are there plans for anything other than a park on the remaining golf course site when our city is underserved with parkland? Why?
Just leave them there so
Okay.
I could do that. Thank you. With all the growth in the city, our zoning codes have requirements for green space and maximum amount of impervious surface, because that's the more impervious surface you have, it's actually you're going to be paying more for stormwater fees. So we try to do that as much as possible. But anytime you take a classic green field and change it into something, you're going to create impervious surface. We do require them to have no more runoff than they did prior to development. That's a regulation that's probably in the last 15 years or so. But development does end up, you have a parking lot, you have a roof and things like that. So we try to get it preserved. Some of the challenges are with areas that are already, that have been previously developed, and now you want to put something new on it. A good example of this, that you're not going to like this answer, but it's the truth. One of the banks that is going to be going over along Oshkosh Avenue, there were some wonderful maple trees, and I think the mayor even pointed out to me, what are they going to do with the maple trees? Well, it just happened to be oak. Thank you. There's my arborist right there. Thank you, Mayor. And it was right in the middle of where the building was going to go. And those challenges are always going to exist. I'd love to tell you that we're going to absolutely preserve every tree, but sometimes they've also run their course. Case in point with the city, over on South Park, we had to take out some willow trees. And I know some people at first were just outraged by it, but sometimes, especially willow trees, they do run their course. So our arborists take a look at those things, and we have to sometimes make some difficult decisions that people don't necessarily like. But we are aware of that. We do try to encourage landscaping plans that at least minimize the loss of green space. Regarding plans, one of probably the most effective arguments against selling a portion of Lakeshore to Oshkosh Corporation was the loss of parkland. One of the things that are used, depending on what community you're in, is the amount of park space. We only talk about city park space. We don't talk about the fact that we have a wonderful county park that is within the city limits. It's a huge park. And we also don't count all the recreation amenities we have with our water. We don't count 1 square inch of water. So I think we do have more than what people give us credit for on the statistics side, and we do take great advantage of the water here in Oshkosh. But with respect to Lakeshore, the council's been very clear that the balance of the Lakeshore site is going to remain parkland. I predict there will be a pretty good debate, because I can tell you there are many different recreational advocates out there, and you will like what some of them propose and you will hate what others propose. It's going to be a lively 2019 because that debate will happen. But council was very clear that they wanted the balance of the site to remain recreation, and so I see that continuing. Meanwhile, we've done some other things in terms of over in the southwest side of town near Traeger Elementary and Middle Schools. We've developed a park plan for that natural area around there, try to maintain some of that natural area, as well as adding some trail amenities so that people feel safe with some lighting, as well as just having benches and things like that. So if their dog's taking them a little too hard, they can rest a little bit, and those types of things. So we are aware, and we do have some park master plans that identify some areas as we grow that we can develop more parkland. We've just had a subdivision approved on the west end of town off of 9th, and there will eventually be some parkland over there that'll be reserved. So those are ways we're trying to increase the amount of parkland we have, and hopefully that will help us up the acreage that we have there. So hope I answered those two questions. If not, you'll catch me afterwards, I'm sure.
Vicki, this one's for you, and I think this is one you were prepared for anyway. It says, can you please share information on facility study and costs we are facing for our facilities? So, wasn't that the last thing on your slide? Yeah.
So with the facility study, this was completed last year, and it took a look at our 21 school sites as well as all the administrative sites related to that. And when I say they were taking a look, they were actually taking a look at some of the inside things such as like plumbing, HVAC systems, electrical, interior infrastructure, and then on the outside, they were also taking a look at like ADA compliance issues, or accessibility, I should say, parking lots, playgrounds, sidewalks, those kind of things. So when they looked at that, there were a few things that were happening. So I know that you've probably heard by now what the number is that has come out as a result from that study. That number, $107 million approximately, is the number to not bring everything up and make it brand new, or not to renovate. Just that's $107 million just to fix all the things, all the challenges that they discovered. Another thing that people also have to recognize is that the average lifespan of an educational institution for a K-12 is typically between 40 and 60 years old, thereabouts. Well over half of our facilities are well over 50 years old. In fact, we have one facility that was built 30 years after the Civil War. We have a few other facilities that were built at the turn of the century. No, not the 2000 century, 1900s. And so this is information that we're taking a look at, and these are conversations. And believe it or not, Oshkosh, way back in the 1950s, built a lot of schools, all in a very short, compacted period of time. But that was 1950s, and we're 2019, so I don't want to mess up the year. So these are things that right now that we're continuing to look at. We're taking a look at our enrollment. What does it look like? Where are students coming from? Where are projections of what that looks like in the future? Those are the next things, the next conversation that we're going to be having with our school board members. I really please stay engaged with this conversation. We're intentionally pushing this information out to our community. We want you to be informed on this. We want you to ask us questions because we need you. And we know that we need you. And our board, they have some tough decisions coming up here in the future. And it's their decisions to make, and of course, my how should I say, my job, so to implement their desires on that. But this is a serious conversation that's coming our way. I don't know what that conversation is just yet. That's to be determined. Hence, please stay in tune.
This one's been asked and seconded, so, and it's for all of our panelists. So I think, Melissa, you'll go first, and then the rest of you can, which means, Alex, you have the longest time to think about. But also, all the good answers will have been taken by the time they get to you. So, okay, the question is, the high level of local poverty is an issue for all of you. Is there a way all of you can work together in dealing with the issue raised by poverty?
That's a tough one. I can only speak to how it impacts our school, our college. We have 7 different indicators of special populations that the school works with, and our highest indicator is the economically disadvantaged. That is the largest special populations group of students we have throughout the college. Again, this is a public facility, a public college. Anybody that comes here and takes a technical diploma and/or an associate degree are eligible for Pell Grants if they meet the criteria. We have about 30% of our student body that does receive Pell Grants. I personally believe that there's many, many more eligible, but a lot of folks just don't comprehend that financial aid process. I think I shared with you last year, because it's such an important piece to education, we hired an individual that specializes just in helping people fill out financial aid. It's a complex system, and it's made more complex by the fact that we just don't have typical families anymore. We have children that have 3 dads and 5 moms, and you know, I'm exaggerating, but all that income has to be accounted for, and a lot of those folks don't want to give out that information. So there are a lot more people eligible for Pell Grants and financial aid, but they just aren't able to access it.
Poverty is a complex community-wide problem, and we all share some role in that. As a community, we share that. But I want to be a little encouraging about this, because this can be a real bummer of a discussion. But I remember when I first got here in 2008, it was immediately after the floods that we had, and it was very clear. The council was clear, the community was clear. We need to take care of infrastructure. I wish poverty solutions were as easy as infrastructure problems. Dr. Cartwright just talked about school facility issues. 107 million, it's a lot of money, but you can, one bite at a time, you can take care of those straightforward issues. It's a facility, it's in good shape, it's in bad shape. Poverty is so complex. I see Sue Ponick, who just retired from the United Way. She wrote me in for 6 years of service on her board, and she taught me a lot. For the community, we got a lot of work to do, and it's complex. It's dealing with pre-K. It's dealing with second shift daycare. It's dealing with transportation, and we've been getting a lot of that discussion these days with dealing with busing for students. It is a very complex problem. Our social service agencies, and I'm not just talking about the county. The county has a lot of that there, but all the programs that United Way funds. Sue, you trained me well. They are out there and they're real. And so what can we do? And you know, as Melissa talked about, I can really only directly talk about the things that are under my control. And in the city's case, what is in our control is what we do with economic development. And we're going to continue to look for, recruit and assist employers who can attract good family earning jobs. It's all nice to have restaurants. We all like to hear, I mean, if I hear another word about a KFC in town, KFC is not economic development. Now, you may be happy that you can get your $5 bowl or something, but that's not going to solve an economic development issue in terms of breadwinning salaries. The work that we do with GoEDC is to attract good paying jobs so families can support their families. But it even gets more complex than that. They got to be trained. They start at elementary and high school, move on to the technical college. Investing in our technical college is a real issue. But Melissa said, we're not getting the enrollment. We need to develop a pathway so that our students do have the ability to go to the technical college and take advantage of the demands. There are demands for good people to come work, but they're having a heck of a time attracting. So it's developing a path that starts way back in pre-K, works into the school system, and then the support for that. The schools can't solve every problem. They only have the kids 8 to 3:30-ish. That's it. The rest of it is the parents, and the rest of it is us, being a supportive community. It goes back to like the diversity issues. So thanks for these really easy softball questions you're tossing at us. But we have to work together. And from city standpoint, it's about attracting good paying jobs so that we can support families. But it goes way beyond that, and we're gonna need all of our help as a community and continue the conversations that Sue started when she was, when you were with United Way, way back in 2018. But listen to these conversations, because they're important, and they're not going away. These problems aren't gonna solve themselves.
Right now in the Oshkosh-Neenah aggregation area, which is an area they measure, employment statistics, the unemployment's only 2.2%. So the number of jobs, the availability of jobs is tremendous. But it's obvious that too many of those jobs have too low pay or don't have benefits associated with them. And I don't really know the answers, but my suggestion would be that the federal government should go back and look at the rules that were passed that were intended to make sure that people that work full-time had health insurance coverage. I don't know what they need to do with them, but they need to look at them, because what seemed to happen in response to those rules was that many employers reduced their employees to 30 hours or less of employment to avoid the benefits, rather than adding benefits to a 40-hour week. So if they go back and look at those rules, maybe they can make some improvement on that. It's time to look at the minimum wage as well. Most people work at a wage above minimum wage, but there's always some people that are at the minimum. And the minimum wage puts pressure on those wages just above that level. And clearly, we haven't changed our minimum wage for years and years, and the cost of living has changed dramatically. Now, real quick, just a couple good things that have been done. There's a hub where a number of social agencies get together and try and coordinate things. And they've got benefit applications that are now effective for more organizations. And that's to help streamline that private sector provision of benefits. And there is a lot of work going on, but it is a serious problem, especially in the urban areas.
So poverty is definitely something that's a very large concern within Oshkosh and within Oshkosh Area School District as well. Currently, we're at approximately 42% of our students qualify for free or reduced lunch right now. Equally as problematic that we're working with is mental health. I'm not going to say that those two things are directly connected, because oftentimes they're not, or oftentimes they are. And so, but I think those are two areas for which we work closely at, because we know that from poverty, oftentimes children come to school, or what we like to call kindergarten ready. In other words, they're ready to come to school. However, unfortunately, what we're finding is that nowadays many of our children are not ready to come to kindergarten. They're lacking skills, and it may be academic skills, but they're also lacking a lot of what we call social emotional skills. In other words, it could be, what happens when I don't get my way? It could be, how do I play with another friend? It could be, the teacher told me to do something. Should I do it? Or do I wait until they start yelling at me? Which, of course, we don't want teachers yelling at children. I'm just in their mind, And so when children come to us with a lack of those skills, what's the root cause of that? And I hate to say that it actually perpetuates across all socioeconomic levels, and the reason is different for each level. With our families of poverty, it's not that these individuals don't want to work. It's not that these individuals aren't working or they're looking for handouts. Oftentimes, these are individuals that are working almost twice as hard as we are, but at a rate of pay that does not allow them to get out of that cycle that they're currently in. So I want to echo on that just a tad bit. We have children from medium or as even upper level socioeconomic status that come to us that are not kindergarten ready. And you're probably going, holy cow, how can they not be kindergarten ready? Those parents know the value of prepping their children. I want to give you a scenario. Just think about it for a moment. Last time you were in the grocery store or in some store and you looked at the children, What were they doing? Now, while they are absolutely, more than likely, on an academic standpoint, accelerated, right? Because they'll know their letters, they'll know their numbers, they'll know their colors, they'll know their shapes. They may even be reading, But this is not occurring. The face-to-face interaction, which is so critically important in childhood development. So, and when this doesn't happen, they don't learn the skills of resiliency. They don't learn the skills of how to appropriately interact with others. They don't understand a lot of those things. So I took that question a little bit, and I took liberty with it, pardon. Well, it is. Thank you. But I think it's important because, as you can see, they're kind of both related to one another, because for the family who comes from poverty, the child who comes from a family of poverty, who's watching them at home? Who's there for them when they get home from school? We have wonderful programs, and I'm very glad that for the work that Sue has done with United Way, as well as many other organizations such as the Boys and Girls Club. That's just a small sampling of those resources that are available. But we still need more. And I can't say that enough. We're very fortunate that we do have partnerships with the county, with the social services and those kind of things, but there's only so many people. He serves a whole county, and we're one segment of that county. We're very fortunate we're glad, we're happy to have that relationship, but that is something that is a concern. We're very fortunate with our relationship with UWO, because with UWO, we're looking towards those programs for students who are completing those programs. How can we tap into the counseling program there? How can we tap into the social services program there in order to provide additional resources for our students? So we're doing those kind of things as well. We're hopefully expanding some of those opportunities and have started those conversations, but those are things that we're working with. To go with the city, that's kind of hard, except for conversations that we're having related to specific areas of town and those kind of things. And Mark already mentioned it, but for example, like transportation and those kind of things. So that we are having conversations. I hate to say this, I haven't had a lot of conversation with Fox Valley Technical related to poverty, except for just some of those the needs of students once they finish high school. So it's a complex issue. We definitely are working across and with multiple organizations. And please, I just ask that you keep in mind that it's not just poverty, but it's also mental health, please. Thank you.
So education transforms people's lives. We believe that, it's true. And everybody who works at our institutions, and I think the technical college and in education all around, believes in that. So the trick is, how can we make it easier for people to have that opportunity for it to transform their lives? And so I'm very proud to say we've got a great program, as an example, that introduces 7th grade students in Oshkosh to college. Just being on a campus and trying the food on campus. What is it like? What is it about? It demystifies the experience of college. And I want to give credit to our colleagues at Fox Valley Technical College too, because they have a similar program so that multiple levels, students in multiple levels, I believe middle school, get a chance to experience what these educational cultures and opportunities are like. So working together, I think we do a pretty good job of that. That's just one example. I did want to also point out one example at UW Oshkosh. We have an organization called the Sustainability Institute for Regional Transformation, or CERT. It just launched in the last year, but when we talk about sustainability, we needn't just talk about it in terms of greenness or environmental concern. There's also economic sustainability. And I think the chancellor and the administration and the faculty members who lead that organization and that institute are very much interested in doing some deeper dives into our communities, Oshkosh, Fond du Lac, Fox Valley, the region, to see what we can do to help examine the problems, the root causes and the issues, and maybe offer some expertise, because we have some brilliant minds at UW Oshkosh, and I think they're ready to serve, so, and they do it already. So.
We're out of time, and I regret that, because there are still some really interesting questions that are going to go unasked. But I want to end by thanking all of you for coming here.